Well, the purpose of our presentation tonight is to help us understand how COVID-19 impacts our lives and how keeping a self-care practice and developing healthy coping skills can help reduce the isolation and also help us deal with grief and loss. We'll also talk some about practical applications and available services.
So some stuff to keep in mind as we go through this journey of learning and discovery tonight is that a lot of people are experiencing isolation. It does not discriminate. And it can be really easy in your own little pod when you are feeling isolated to forget all of the other myriad of individuals who are experiencing that. So I just want to open your minds to the fact that a lot of people think it's older people or people with disabilities, but yeah, maybe it is someone older who is in a living facility. Perhaps that's you. Or maybe you have a disability or a health issue where it's not safe to be around other people. It could also be that you are living alone without connection or being a single parent. You may have a child or children running around, but not having that adult peer interaction can be really isolating as well. As we go through everything tonight, please, if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in the Q&A box. We'll have some time to discuss any questions or comments that come up for you. So please join them in there. And we are recording, so if you want to come back to this, if you know someone and you think some of this might be useful for them, that will be available soon once we're finished. And just a final reminder to be gentle with yourself. We're going to be talking about some stuff that is emotional. It's hard to talk about sometimes. Just be gentle with yourself. Get a sip of water if you need it. And Shelly always says, take what you need and let the rest go. So if there's something that resonates with you, hold on to that. And you can let the other things go by that maybe don't ring true as much for you. So first thing, we're going to talk about how COVID-19 is impacting our lives. I'm a big believer that we need to know why something is happening so we can know what to do about it, right? If we don't really know what the thing is, we don't know what to do about the thing. So I want to explore that first. So one of the big things is how isolation is affecting our mental health and our physical health, because those things are highly connected. And looking at the research, it's showing that symptoms of depressive symptoms, there we go, are 3 times more likely to come up right now. And then if you add any other stressors, isolation, financial insecurity, health concerns, anything like that, that is even heightened. So isolation, loneliness can really increase anxiety or depression. Maybe you haven't experienced anxiety or depression before and you are feeling it for the first time. Or maybe it's something that you've lived with that has increased as this has happened. And when all of that is going on, when we're alone, we also question ourselves a lot. And that's something that comes up. Your sense of self, self-esteem, self-image can really come up. And all of it leads to a lot of brain fog and difficulty with focus, a lot of times with this unstructured time. A concern that we're also seeing is those unhealthy coping skills, because right now it's a lot more drug use, drinking, undereating, overeating, risky behaviors. Those things can start to pop up really easily when we're feeling overwhelmed emotionally. And then that feeds right into our physical health as well. And one of the big things that it gets is sleep. Undersleeping, oversleeping can really whack out how we're feeling. And our feelings, our experiences live in our bodies. So when we're feeling this mental, emotional distress, we also feel physical distress, and that can lead to a weakened immune system. I also think it's important to think about how trauma affects how our brains are working, because it's a big impact right now on how we're responding to things. And I say trauma People kind of shy off on what is trauma, but really trauma is something that shakes up your sense of safety, something that is a shock, something that gets in the way of you coping normally and feeling safe. So right now, everyone is experiencing a global health crisis, a global trauma. And when we are in our trauma brain place, something that's real tricky is our thinking center, where we remember things. That brain block, right? That's happening a lot. We remember things, we come up with our words, we're intellectual, we put it all together, we interact. That part of our brain, underactive right now. And then you go into the emotional regulation center, as peer into my brain, you go to the emotional regulation center, and that is also underactive right now. So all the emotions that are coming up are really bubbling around more than they would normally. And in all of that space, so now that space that has been created is our amygdala. That is our fight, flight, freeze. That is our reptilian brain, our fear brain. And that's what's coming up right now. So a lot of what's coming up is just our brains are functioning differently than they were before. And this is everybody, this is across the board. So this impact of isolation and trauma is really affecting people in some really big ways.
That's some really, really good points, Lee. Thank you for bringing those up. And I'd really like to talk just for a little bit about some grief and loss. Like Lee was saying, when we think back to the beginning of March this year, when we started hearing about COVID-19, our lives started changing. And let's think for a minute about, just remember kind of how you were feeling and how we're still feeling about the coronavirus. I hear people mentioning feelings of like sadness, forgetfulness, that foggy brain, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, being overwhelmed. It's like our brains have too many tabs open. And what people are describing as grief. And many people have the mistaken idea that grief only occurs when someone dies. And this is just not true. Grief is defined as the appropriate emotional response to loss. And we have experienced many losses this year and are collectively grieving the world we knew. We're grieving things like our routine, work, school, physical touch and connection, gathering of worship, gathering of meals, things like graduation, weddings, travel, childcare, going to the theater, financial security, personal freedoms, and even safety. We know that the virus is temporary, but some days it just doesn't feel like that. And things are going to look different. I mean, remember going to the airport is now different after 9/11, and our world is going to look different as well. Maybe one day we'll look back and say, remember when we physically went to the doctor and used to go to HEB to shop? Not only are we dealing with this communal or collective grief, we're also dealing with anticipatory grief. And anticipatory grief is feeling the fear of what the future might hold. People feel this type of grief typically after getting a bad diagnosis. And we're all feeling this now. We can't see the virus, and we've never experienced anything like this before. We have uncertainty about the future and have fear and anxiety about what comes next. We're feeling a loss of safety. And I'll quickly mention a few other types of grief. One is cumulative grief, and this refers really to the feeling of loss when there's a chain of negative events, one after the other, following a loss. So maybe you've had a death in the family, and then one of your children loses their jobs, and then you had to cancel a family trip, and so the losses pile up, and it's difficult to keep up, and things kind of feel like they're snowballing. Disenfranchised grief occurs when society attempts to invalidate the grief of an individual. For example, a lot of students and seniors are really feeling this right now. People will tell them things like, it's just a prom, or gosh, I wish I could have skipped graduation, or I don't see what the big deal is. They still get to graduate. I mean, these statements, they're well meaning, but they really invalidate and kind of dismiss the feelings that the students have and can lead to disillusionment. Another type of grief is called complicated grief. And this focuses on the feelings of loss that are long lasting and can disrupt the ability to do daily activities. If it becomes chronic or debilitating, it can be really useful to seek mental health counseling. So why is it important to acknowledge that we're grieving? Well, the truth is, if we name it, we can allow ourselves to really feel the emotions. And our emotions need motion. So suppressing them, dismissing them, discounting them don't help us move through the process. Successful grieving keeps losses from accumulating into further trauma and stress and helps us move on and enjoy what comes next. So this is a really good time to remember that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's crucial in any race to have a plan and not go out too fast. You have to pace yourself, take water breaks, and stop if you need to walk and stretch. And mentally, we need to remind ourselves that this is a long race and we need to take care of ourselves. So many of us have coronavirus fatigue and just want this just to be over. So self-care is an important part of battling loneliness and coping with the grief and loss that we all feel.
And so it's about understanding what's going on, right? We understand what our brains and our bodies and our feelings are doing, and so now we're talking about what do we do about it. So one of my favorite things to talk about is self-care. I love talking about self-care, and a lot of times when you hear self-care and people talk about their self-care, it's a lot of like bath bombs and bubble baths and chocolate cake and wine with your friends or something like that, which by all means, lovely things to do to find connection with yourself and with others. That's great. But I really think of it as a daily practice rather than an indulgence. Self-care is about finding ways to fully holistically take care of yourself so that you don't feel like you always need that indulgent escape. And while it's great, you don't feel like you need to get away all the time. So you got to take care of your mind and your body. One of the big things with your body is sleep. When our sleep is off, then our emotions are off, then our eating is off. It can just really snowball, right? And healthy sleep hygiene is one of the most important things that we can do. So getting up at the same time every day, going to sleep at the same time every night. And we can train our brains to fall asleep. Sometimes it's hard, but we can train our brains. They get things. So it's like, okay, here's my sleep routine. I wash my face, brush my teeth, I get in my PJs, I read a chapter of my book, I go to sleep. And you continue that every night. And then eventually your brain's like, wash my face, brush my teeth, get in bed, PJs, reading a book. Oh, okay, now we go to sleep, right? We can train our brains to do those sort of things. I always say eat healthy-ish food, right? It's important to nourish our bodies and eat regularly. Having lots of meals or big meals might not be what works for you right now, but making sure that you're getting good food in you. And I say healthy-ish because chips are so delicious. Like, it happens. Eat chips, do it. Have a brownie. So that's important. Also, just having a clean body, taking a shower and putting on clean clothes. I always like to think back, like when you're a little kid and you're sick and you want to get up and you're achy, and it's like, no, you got to take a shower. You take a shower and you put on fresh, PJs to get back in bed, and you do feel better. It's like getting a haircut. Like you just feel better afterwards. And I always say workout. And by workout, I mean move your body in a healthy way. And it's not just CrossFit or hiking or running. It can also look like doing some stretching, not even necessarily yoga, but just doing some light stretching to move your body around, maybe move the feelings out of your body. It could be finding ways to be intimate with yourself or other people, having a little dance party at home. Just different ways to move your body with joy can be really important. And then water. Drink water as much as you can. Water is very cleansing. Shower, splashing water on your face, drinking water is a great way to support its function. And then for our minds, something that we can do is engage in hobbies. And I will say, not maybe making sourdough bread is not your thing. I know that's a big thing right now. It might not be your thing, and that is okay. But having a book club, reading things that are meaningful for you, finding a new recipe. Maybe every week you just try one different recipe than you have before, something like that. And there has been a lot of question about, what are you learning during your quarantine time, during COVID? If you haven't learned how to play the guitar and speak 3 languages, that's okay. Your brain is not functioning in a way that allows for those things to happen easily. But maybe you're doing some other things that are meaningful. Staying connected with other people is part of taking care of yourself and your mind and your body. We'll be talking a lot more about that in a little bit. And then sunshine. If you are not able to physically go outside and get sunshine, even if you can find a window and you can just sit next to a window and get some sun on your face, it really has a big impact. Nature, being in nature, feeling nature, noticing nature is proven to decrease anxiety and depression. And I also want to say, just treat yourself like a child sometimes, right? If you had a child and the child was hungry, even if they'd already had a meal 20 minutes earlier, you would give that kiddo a snack. Or if they were really upset and they just didn't know why and they felt fussy, you would let them get on the couch and wrap up in a blanket and watch something funny. Just little things like that. I think sometimes just treating yourself like a child and just putting yourself in that brain space can be really helpful. And Shelly has heard me say this a million times, do your best every day, recognizing that it looks different every day. So maybe you're working on your sleep routine. You want to start going to sleep at 10, you've been going to sleep at 2. All right, we'll just eke it back a little bit, 15 minutes at a time or something, right? Just do your A+ for the day and know that it's different on 4 hours of sleep than 8 hours of sleep, and that is okay.
Those are such great reminders, Lee. Thank you for those. I would like to just shift just a little bit now and talk about some coping skills. So we have to take care of ourselves, and it's important to take care of ourselves to find peace and stability and that calm internally to deal with the pressures that are around us. And when we focus on ourselves, we can increase resilience. We can't give what we don't have. So we'll be talking about things we can do that can fill up our cup. So I'm going to discuss some coping skills, and you can decide which ones resonate with you and which ones to maybe incorporate into your daily life. First, we'll be discussing ways to connect in with yourself that help kind of slow down and help us stay grounded. So one of the first big things that can be helpful in connecting with ourselves is journaling. Now, that's a big thing that a lot of people talk about, and there's no right way to do it. It can be very individualized. You can write down what you did that day. You can draw on it. You could scribble. You can write what you're grateful for. Whatever helps you in getting those thoughts that are in your head out on the paper. Another way to connect with ourselves is meditation and deep breathing. If you're new to meditation, I would suggest apps like Headspace, Calm, 10% Happier. They're a good resource for guided meditations and to assist with staying in the present moment. And deep breathing is also very helpful because you can do it anytime. You can do it in your house, outside, in your car, when you just feel your heart start racing or your mind start going, it's real helpful just to take a few deep cleansing breaths. Another way that we connect with ourselves is having a gratitude list. And some people find it helpful to have a notebook next to their bed and right when they wake up first thing in the morning to jot down 3 or 4 things that they're grateful for. Kind of starts the day off in a positive note. Or you could even write things down before you go to sleep, 3 or 4 things that you're grateful for that day, to kind of, as you're going to sleep, kind of be thinking things that you're grateful for is really helpful. Another thing you can do is positive affirmations. So this can be helpful when we find ourselves having a lot of negative thoughts, and affirmations help us kind of reset and just kind of reset our brains. A few things that you could say are like, I've been through hard times before and I've survived them, or I will not stress over things I can't control. So your affirmations may look totally different. You can come up with affirmations that are helpful to you, but just saying those over and over can help with negative thoughts and help us reframe and refocus our attention. Another thing that we can do to connect with ourselves is to feel our feelings. Just to kind of either write things down or to think through, name kind of what we're feeling, identify it, feel them, and then let them go. Just like a cloud in the sky that floats by, our feelings also just pass by, and it's important to name it to tame it. So if
Name it
you're,
to tame
what'd you say?
it. Name it to tame it. That's
Name it to tame it. That's right. So it can be so helpful. Another thing that we can do to connect to ourselves is to give your brain just a break. Do things that are predictable and soothing, like reading a book again or watching a movie. You already know the ending. It can be very soothing and comfortable just to do something again.
Mm-hmm.
And just remember that it's important to let go of what you can't control. It's easy to be judgmental with people sometimes that don't make the same choices that we do. And we can't control our neighbors' actions, but we can focus on what we can control. We can focus on social distancing and washing our hands and wearing a mask and all those good things that we know. So we can focus on things that we can control. Another coping skill that is beneficial is goal setting. And our lives used to be so filled with activities, busyness, and suddenly all that busyness stopped last March. We lost our routines, and it's important that we formulate daily tasks, daily schedules, and set small, reasonable goals that will help us create new structure and meaning in our lives. So for example, some people find it helpful to set their alarms for the same time each day and wake up and maybe have their meals at the same time, set exercise for the same time, or Zoom calls, whatever you have scheduled. So there's some organization to your day. We can also set goals like reading a book a month or finishing that photo album or writing letters to loved ones. Learning new things is also another coping skill that can bring meaning and purpose to our lives. We can broaden our world by learning something new, like writing or sewing, playing chess, origami, scrapbooking, cooking. So besides, baking that bread, you can learn a new recipe, art, you can practice learning another language or an instrument or taking a class online through UT or ACC. Another helpful coping skill is managing our fear. And this is a tough one because it can get out of control pretty easy. How many of us have sat down to look at something on our phone or look something on our iPad just for a second? And then before we know it, like an hour has gone by and we really feel despondent and kind of overwhelmed. So actions like this really can contribute to our fear. It's helpful to limit the news and have purposeful consumption. So instead of scrolling, decide before you even sit down what news source you're going to read and inform yourself with good information. Another helpful exercise is to remember that you are in a safe place right now. If you start feeling anxiety and being overwhelmed, it can be really helpful just to sit down in your favorite chair and to feel the carpet or to feel the floor, feel with your feet, and then feel the chair, look around and name things in your room and just say to yourself, I am in a safe place. I'm safe and I'm okay. And you may have to do that several times a day because it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the news that is, in our world. But if we can remember that we're in a safe place, that can really help manage that fear. And finally, self-compassion. Please remember, you don't have to do everything at once. Be patient with yourself and others. Everyone deals with stress, grief, and fear differently. So giving yourself and others extra grace and compassion right now can help manage anxiety and lower the stress levels for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it kind of goes back to treating yourself like a child.
Yeah, right.
If you're having a hard time, I'm going to give you love and compassion, and treat yourself like you would your best friend or something like that. I will say one of my favorite things is gratitude expression, because it's been scientifically proven to make you just feel better. And some people talk about feeling happier, and feeling happy might not be in the cards sometimes, but just feeling a little bit better. So it's definitely one of my favorite things. And you can do deep breaths anytime. I just did them. It felt really great. So now we're going to talk about some of the things that you can actually do, right? So we know what is going on and why our brains and bodies are reacting. We've learned about how we can help our bodies and our brains get into a healthier place. And once those things are put together, it can make it a little easier then to reach out and break out of that isolated place. And I always want to give a reminder that you can be afraid, you can and still have courage. You can be nervous and still try something new. And so it always resonates when I hear it. If you want something different, you have to try something different. So if for whatever reason right now you need to be staying inside for whatever reason, and that is your focus, there are a lot of ways to still reach out and connect with people. Phone calls is a great way to start. There have been a lot of studies showing that even a 30-minute phone call once a week can really battle against those depressive symptoms that are coming up right now, and it can really take that on, which is great. Even just a simple phone call to check in. If you are able to do Zoom or FaceTime, that can be increasingly fun because then you can see someone moving around. Maybe your physical joyful movement for the day is that dance party. You can do it with your grandkids or your best friend or something like that. And Shelly mentioned it, writing letters. Writing letters and think of the last letter you got that someone wrote, and it feels so special. Mm-hmm. Knowing that you took the time to sit down and physically write. It wasn't like talk to text. You physically wrote something to someone. You had to put it in an envelope, maybe look up the address, put a stamp on it, get into a mailbox or a Dropbox. Taking that time, it can feel really good to do that for someone else. And it's a great way to bring them in as a connection point. And, it can be fun, even if it's someone you know really well, to kind of be pen pals again and just connect in that way. A lot of religious services are available to stream online. So re-engaging in spiritual practices of yours, that's something that we're seeing a lot of. And that's a holistic, right? It's your mind, it's your body, it's your spirit, it's your soul. All of it is ways to connect. Something that's also super cool, I feel like I feel like tech got really into the COVID thing fast. So there are a lot of collaborative games that you can play online. It's Scrabble. There are all sorts of like little mystery games that you can play with each other. So even if you're not in the same place, you can still play. Or like if you're learning chess, like Shelly was saying, you can play chess online with people. You can play Mahjong. You can't get together with your Mahjong group in person, but you can play online, which is super cool. And they even come up, there's like Netflix parties. So you can watch a movie with your friends, not just watch it and talk about it, which is also great. But you can actually watch the movie together and chat about it, which is really cool. And then you can bring your popcorn at home or whatever snack you'd like to have and make a whole night of it, which can be really fun. Therapeutic support is something that can also be really helpful. So you could be working individually with a therapist, and that would be a lot of the internal work maybe that we kind of talked about inside yourself, building those coping skills, building back up that sense of self that can be lost in isolated places. But there are also groups that you could be a part of. So there are therapy groups where it's the same people every week, every 2 weeks that get together. And some are just open groups where it's more informal and you can just drop in with other people who share your experiences or have similar interests. So that could be really nice. And when you are talking with people, I really encourage trying to get to a deeper conversation level. You may call someone, you talk about the weather or some yes or no questions. It's like this surface level conversation, and it doesn't have the same effect. But trying to go into some deeper things, sharing your feelings, your thoughts, your experiences, it can be scary at times to open yourself up in that way. But starting those conversations with, if you could do anything right now, what would you do? Or, what was it like growing up in Maryland? What kind of stuff did you do growing up there? Just ways to get to know people on a different level can really dig that up. I'll also say you may not have internet access. So a lot of people lost their internet access because they were using it at maybe a friend's house or at the library. So they don't have that. For all this, obviously you can do phone calls still, but Zoom meetings, you can call into those. And so some of you might be even calling in right now. And if you're not sure how to do it, maybe that's a way to connect with a friend is give them a call and have them, kind of walk you through how to do it. So there, a lot of these things you can still do, even if you don't have internet access. And a lot of things have closed captioning. Something that we're working on right now is getting all of our services with closed caption as well to be inclusive of all individuals who may need benefit from some additional connection and support.
That's wonderfully. Thank you so much. And I just want to reiterate, we totally understand so many people need for many reasons to be staying inside right now. So thank you for those suggestions, Lee. And I personally really like the next Netflix party. I look forward to trying that. I think that sounds really fun. So
I just thought of something because I saw lunch. You could also get together with a meal and just sit outside the window from each other.
yes, I love that.
I'm by myself. There's a barrier of my home and someone's sitting outside of my home or apartment, and we can like talk on our phones, but we can still see each other. I just thought that's a thing to do. That's a nice connection.
That's really nice. Very nice. All right, so I'm going to shift things a little bit to consider some outside activities. So now that we know more about the virus, we're able to look online from reputable sources and obtain daily data, protocols, and guidelines in our own area. We're able to calculate our own risk and make informed decisions about participating in activities outside our home. We're so used to being inside our house that the thought of venturing out can be really scary for some people. And I really get that. Just very important to take it one small step at a time. And I just like to throw out some activities that you could consider doing. And maybe you can pick one of these this week that you haven't done and consider doing it or make a plan. So, one activity would be to go out and have lunch in a park. Or I guess it could also be an early dinner, but just pack a lunch and or dinner and just go to a park, enjoy the nature, hear birds, see other people from a distance. If you feel comfortable enough, you could have another person bring their picnic lunch and social distance and enjoy just having a connection either with yourself in nature or with someone else outside. Another activity could be just taking a walk around the neighborhood. Take your dog on a walk or just take yourself
Yes.
and just go around and just notice some things that you haven't seen before. It's real, it can be
Oh,
very
Shelly, are you
calm.
frozen?
Am I frozen?
You froze momentarily, but you are back.
Okay, very good. Okay, so you can go outside and walk in the neighborhood. Either take your dog outside or you can walk around yourself and just notice something that you haven't noticed before. You can also have coffee on the porch. That can be a nice thing in the morning, just to invite a neighbor over or just to say hi to neighbors as they're passing by. Some people enjoy golfing or fishing. You can also go outside and plant a garden, or that can be a flower garden or maybe some vegetables and watch it grow. That can be very satisfying to see
Mhm.
something that you've made just blossom. You can also enjoy yoga classes and outdoor fitness classes outside. There's also stargazing. They have apps on the phone. If you have a smartphone that even show you, you can go outside and it shows you what constellations that you're looking at. And that's just mesmerizing. It's really exciting just to go outside and just see the night stars. Another fun thing that's really gaining momentum is the drive-in movies. So you can go out um, with yourself and significant other and go see a movie. And it's so exciting because you can be safe and then also have that experience.
Mhm.
And also here in Austin, we're so lucky to have all this outdoor space. So it's really easy to get out and go on a hike or a bike or a swim and just enjoy the outdoors. So
Mhm.
again, just really encourage y'all just to take one small step at a time.
That is so true. Getting some sunshine and just putting your hands in dirt feels so good. It can be really grounding, kind of like sitting in the chair and feeling the chair and your feet on the floor. It's one of those things which can be really grounding and satisfying. So we also want to talk about, sometimes you yourself are pulling yourself out, but each of you and everyone also has an opportunity to support others and kind of pulling them outside as well. If you have something to give it. Something that can really help in creating structure for yourself, for another person, is coming up with something weekly to do. Maybe it's a weekly dinner, right? You get together with your kids and they're they're having their dinner and you have yours, or a weekly phone call or something like that. And I will also say, I think it's great to schedule it for structure and have something to look forward to. And it's easier to cancel than to say, yes, I do need it. So if you're meeting with someone every week and you have your phone call Tuesday at 3:00, and someone says, I'm having a pretty good week. I don't really know if I need to talk next week. Instead of just popping it off of your calendar, a great way to work with it is, I'm so glad you're feeling that way. I'm going to keep it on my schedule anyhow, just so we can chat. I'd love to hear about how things are going really great for you. But if you don't want to, you can always cancel them. So leaving it open, because if something happens, it's so much harder to reach out and say, oh, can we talk again this week? Than it is to say, I don't need to talk this week. So that makes it a lot easier for that person. And finding ways to reach out to people and reach out to them often. You can even let them know if it's a voicemail or an email or a letter, whatever it be. You can simply share that you're thinking of them, you're sending them well wishes, you hope they're doing okay. And you could even explicitly say, like, you don't have to text me back if you're not up to it. Because sometimes it can be overwhelming to get text messages when you're in a place of feeling kind of anxious or depressed or overwhelmed. But keep that line of communication open. Even if someone isn't responding necessarily, they're still feeling that connection. Mm-hmm. And then trying new things. That can be so great. Maybe start up a mini book club with some of your friends. Maybe you all watch the same show every week and then you get together and you dish about it and what happened, right? So there are different things like that. And even if you can just drop by some muffins on somebody's porch, send them flowers, send something they like to eat. Little things like that can be so meaningful and special. And it's a way to someone to help pull them out of that place they're in. And then don't say no for other people. I heard Rabbi Reese say this a couple weeks ago at a Shabbat service, and it just hit me. Don't say no for other people. It can be really easy when you offer up, hey, I'm free on Friday to talk. Do you want to talk? Or hey, we're having our Netflix party. Why don't you join in? And for whatever reason, someone's saying no. And it could be that in their isolation, feeling depressed, it's really hard to do that. Mm-hmm. But the next time, don't say, oh, well, said no, maybe they don't want to. That's saying no for someone. Go ahead and offer them the opportunity to say yes or no for themselves. And then quickly, we're going to put up, when we're able to put up the recording, it's not going to happen right away. It'll take a few days. Once we put it up, we're going to put a lot more resources of ways you can find connections, because if you have an interest or a hobby, or you're part of a demographic, there is something for you. Meetup is great for that. Bumble, BFF, some of the younger individuals watching, Bumble started as a dating app, but now they made it like a friend app to find friends. Big and Mini is a way to connect younger adults with older adults and have this intergenerational connection and conversations. But things for LGBTQIA elders, support groups, music therapy, free classes. And with Shalom Austin, we have a lot of offerings with adult programs, fitness classes, lots of things to learn and attend. So there are a lot of ways to kind of get out there and find things that are interesting for you. There's a lot out there. So we're going to continue to compile a list and just get you a lot more about that.
Thank you, Lee. I also wanted to just talk real quick about some offerings that we have at JFS. We have a lot of resources for the community, including therapy, support groups, a food pantry, emergency financial assistance, outreach to older adults, and volunteer opportunities. Our support groups that we have include Wellness with a Disability, Mood and Mindfulness. There's going to be a new support group coming up soon regarding teachers, so the teachers can have their own support group. They're going through a really tough time right now. And also a meditation for children that is offered every Wednesday at 4. And also on the Shalom Austin Facebook page, we have closed captioning, and all the videos are available to watch at any time. Mm-hmm. Also wanted to mention in our next webinar series, it'll be on December 2nd, and it's going to be redefining normal during COVID-19. And you can email JFS to register.
Mm-hmm. I'll be doing that one. It's going to be really focused on mental health and even expanding more on grounding and self-care opportunities, and kind of redefining things like productivity, procrastination, creativity, all these things that we're kind of wrecking our brains with. So we're going to be able to discuss some of those things. So now I'm going to pull up our little Q&A box and see any questions that anyone might have. Currently, no questions. If you have any, don't be shy. We're happy if you have any thoughts, comments, queries, concerns. We're here to support you. I will say there's no stupid question, and no one knows who's asking what, so toss it out there.
Right. And if we don't know, we'll be happy to find out the answer and get back with you. So
yes, it's question and answer, question response, question and that's a good question. I'm going to find out more. Question,
right.
it depends. All right. Well, it doesn't seem like anyone has any questions. Oh, I have a couple things in the chat. Oh, a couple things that came up in the chat. We're living with waking. Yeah, there are a lot of support groups meeting on Zoom. There's a lot going on. All right. It doesn't seem like there are any questions right now. But of course, if you have questions or concerns, please reach out to us. You can email JFS and we are happy to answer any questions and get you any support that you may need. We're happy to. So I guess we'll wrap up for today. Again, my name is Lee Rogers.
And I'm Shelley Russell.
And we're so glad that you could join us today. So I hope that you have a great evening. I'm gonna go ahead and get this paused out. Okay. Well, thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.